Bloom in the Black. In this video, I'm going to give you tips and tricks on how to stencil an accent wall like this. So let's get going. First things first, you're going to need a stencil, paint of your choosing, a 4-inch foam roller, and optional but recommended if you want to do multiple colors like I did here, you'll want stencil brushes. The size is going to depend on the size of your stencil and the size of the detail work you're going to be doing, but you can have big giant ones like this or little ones like this. Okay, before you get to the fun part of stenciling, what you're going to want to do is to roll your entire wall, even if you are not changing the background color, and I'm going to tell you why. First, you're going to want to patch up all the little nail holes and things that might have been there, and there's probably some scuffs and just, normal wear and tear that paint takes. And if you don't touch up the entire wall, a couple things could happen. One, if you just touch up where you patched holes, you're going to get some flashing, which is when it's almost like a shiny spot on the paint and the texture just changes. So when you look at it from certain angles, you can see the touch up, and you don't want that. Two is that if you notice a blemish after the fact, you don't want to go in and try to fix it like between the pattern. So anyway, just re-roll the whole wall. It seems like a big pain in the butt, but if you're doing only one wall, it's gonna be like 30 minutes. So do it, it'll come out better. Okay, now that we have repainted the wall, what we're gonna do is we're gonna find the center and we're going to start stenciling from the top down. We'll do one vertical row in the center and then we'll alternate left and right and left, whatever, but just go one side then the other side until you get to the edges of the wall. A couple things I like to do. One, I like to have painter's tape already pre-torn and stuck to my step ladder so that when I'm trying to wrestle with this stencil, I have tape already torn and I'm not trying to do 6 things at once. Trust me, it's easier. Second thing, make sure this is level. Not level to the ceiling, actually level to the earth. So as long as you get the very first stencil leveled, everything else will sort of fall into place. Like I said, we're going to start at the top. I just have it here for demonstration purposes. And then let's just get stenciling and we'll talk about some more things as we go. In order to load your roller, you're going to want to get a bit of paint here and then roll it on this little ramp to evenly coat your roller. And then you're going to offload some of your paint onto a piece of paper towel. The reason you do this is if this is too wet, your paint's gonna bleed underneath your stencil and that is gonna be terrible. So offload first. Work with a dry roller and a dry brush. We're gonna do the same thing with the brush. So I am doing a slightly different color for the berries on this stencil. And I have this really nice set of brushes from Cutting Edge Stencils, but it's a nice flat round brush, and this is going to make stenciling details a lot easier. I just personally like to roll larger areas because I'm, a little lazy, I guess. Anyway, dry that off. All right, you can see things are looking really good right now. So I just wanted to show you a couple techniques as far as rolling and brushing. So I personally like to roll for most of it because it's a little faster. Especially for these bigger areas, it's a lot easier. Plus, I find I don't have as much trouble with bleeding. Now you can spray adhesive on the back of the stencil. I think that gives you false confidence, to be honest. That's just my personal opinion. Use the spray adhesive if you'd like. I just use tape and I just try to be extra super careful to not roll underneath. The big areas you need to worry about are things like these that flip up. So you don't want to go up and down and all around. You want to go sort of in the direction that's going to flatten the stencil the most. So let's just see how that looks in practice. I am using 2 colors for this stencil, and what I'm doing is I'm applying the larger areas and not worrying about if I roll into the berries, which are going to be a different color. And then I'll go back in with a brush to do the berries afterwards, and then I can just go right over that other color. So it doesn't really matter. It's a lot easier. But I would recommend with your personal stencil, you test beforehand on a piece of poster board or foam core and just kind of play around with which way makes the most sense for your stencil and what's going to create the easiest and most seamless paint edges. So anyway, you can see I'm just going very gently in one direction over these areas, and I'll have to go over a few different times. But let me just, so you can see how I did the rolling there. Now I'm just going to show you what I do with the brush. Again, with my very dry brush, I'm going to use a small brush for the areas that are very close to another color. And I'll use a wider brush for these bigger berry areas just because it's easier. You can use a small brush for the whole thing, but I find it's a little easy to slip underneath with a small brush, so I just use that for the detail areas. So you're going to, you can swirl or pounce. If you're not using spray adhesive, don't swirl because you're gonna move your stencil around and that's not gonna be good. When you pounce, you just wanna tap firmly straight down so that you're not, again, moving that stencil back and forth. You're pushing the stencil straight against the wall and you're not gonna get as many like bleedy edges that way. So I'm just gonna take this and you see how I'm just doing, just tap, 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 tap on all the areas that are right against a different color, just to be on the safe side. I tried using a bigger brush when I first started and I was definitely getting into some dicey situations. So these berries, I'm going to use the small brush on the whole thing just because it's sandwiched right in the middle of these two gray leaves. So anyway, that's basically how I go about it. Now, I am by no means an expert with the brush. Like I said, I usually do rolling. I'm only using a brush in this case because I'm doing different colors and detail work. So if you want to get some really good tips on brush work, I would recommend checking out Cutting Edge Stencils. They have some very good tutorials. So I'm going to pop a link to one of their brush tutorials in the description below. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this project. It's a really awesome way to add huge impact on a budget, especially now where a lot of us are working from home. It's great to have this kind of background to sort of fill in for Zoom calls and video conferencing, things like that. And it just looks more professional. Anyway, if you need more tips for things like styling Zoom calls, I will drop a link below to an article I have about other things you can do besides a feature wall. I will also drop a link down below with a more detailed post on stenciling. So if you want to watch future videos from me, don't forget to subscribe, and I will talk to you next week. Bye.